Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here this afternoon on Gulfstream. Today I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Ron Nicoletti here to tackle this racing program this afternoon. We've had a couple days off, but ready to get back to the action. Last weekend was a really successful weekend. We saw some track records broken actually in a very, very firm course last weekend.
Yeah, I was going to just say that, mark that down. It's going to be interesting to see. But on the latter part of the day, we had a couple of horses come from off the pace and win on the turf, so it sort of evened out. And, of course, the big news here at Gulfstream Park is the carryover, I guess, in the Rainbow Six.
Yes, once again, we do have that big carryover, and we have some of our other featured wagers of the day, so we'll take you through those featured wagers and our carryovers. Race 1 starts it all off with that rolling super high five. As we stay in race 1, the early pick 5 does kick off the first 5 races of the day. Race 6 on today's program, 20-cent Rainbow Six does start, $2.6 million and growing. Race 7 kicks off the 50-cent late pick 5 as well. 11 races on tap, and we started all off with race 1, and I believe you came up with an early pick 5 ticket, so we'll get straight to that.
And it was not an easy task. I could only get it down to $54. I went too deep in the opening event. I went with the 1 and 7 Inky Dinky Doo and Red Hot Ralph. Then I used 3, 2, 3, and 3 for $54 ticket. I could not find a single. I wanted to, but just I didn't have. If I had a chance, I would use 3 in every race if I could, but it would be too much of a ticket. So I'm going to try and get through the first with the 1 Inky Dinky Doo and the 6 Red Hot Ralph, who I like more than the 1.
Well, I feel your pain in the pick 6 because my single scratched today, and I was very disappointed about that. But yes, it is a tough sequence in the early pick 5. We'll start off with this first race, and just looking at early money, but this is where should get some play. The 3 Tilted Halo for trainer Eddie Pliza. They tried the turf last time out. I knew going into that last race. The thing with this horse, he obviously came off a significant layoff since March. He came back to the races and immediately plunged to the bottom for the 12,500 claiming tag. He got the victory. He was all out to win that race, and I have the inkling that Eddie Pliza tried this horse on the turf to see if he could move him up. What other conditions can you go to other than this non-winners at 2? So he's kind of testing the waters, but if you get a short price on this horse, I do think he's a little bit unreliable.
Yeah, I didn't even use him on my ticket there. I tried and beat him off of that performance last time, and I just think they're searching for a spot for my. But I did go with, I agreed with you with a top pick with Red Hot Ralph, who, guess what? Moved to the George Navarro barn, steps up to the next logical level after defeating 12-5 maidens at the distance last time out. I wanted to show a stat that I think is really incredible because it's a big stat, and you'll see it when it comes up here. Red Hot Ralph, trainer George Navarro, he's 65 for 174. That's 37% with a $2.45 ROI. That's incredible to me over a 5-year span with all those first-time starters still showing a positive ROI.
The fact that he is still a positive ROI is very surprising because most oftentimes we see his horses go off at very short prices. But this is why George Navarro is so successful with these lower level dirt claimers off the claim, is because he seeks out speed. He knows how valuable speed is in these low level claimers, because a lot of horses don't like to close from off the pace. Some horses gain confidence on the lead, and that's exactly the case with this horse, the 6 Red Hot Ralph. I think he's going to be the fastest early. George Navarro can obviously improve horses. Even if this horse makes a lateral move, I think he should be competitive.
Yeah, I think he's one to beat in the opener, but I'm worried about the 3. I didn't use him, but I did go to the 1 and 2nd. Inky Dinky Doo is going to depart from the rail after a game outing. I thought this level and distance in which he was collared in the stretch, but fought back. He got beat only 3/4 of length, but I like the grit that he showed. He fought back to get beat only 3/4 of length. So I threw that 1 on the ticket. I don't know what he's on the morning line. He's third choice at 5-1.
5-1, Inky Dinky Doo. We'll move on to the second race on the card, a maiden $25,000 event. 6 furlongs on the main track, and we have a couple of first-time starters, the 2, the 3, and the 5, and also the 8 emerging wins. So it kind of makes this race a little bit tricky, but I think the class of the race and the known factor in here is the 6 Killer Bird.
Yeah, this one is dropping to this $25,000 level on the dirt after facing tougher on the lawn, including her last back on December 17th when she broke from post 10. She pressed the pace. She weakened as the favorite, finished 9th, but it was against $50,000 maidens going a mile on the turf, and that was when you could not win on the front end on the turf. So off that performance, I put the number 6 Killer Bird on top of my ticket.
And even looking at her back races on the main track when she first started out, her debut performance was back in June here locally going the 7 furlongs, and she faced a very good field that day. Tar and Feather, we saw even Liberty Road. These are kind of quality allowance types fillies. And she didn't get off to a great start. That was her only try on a fast main track. So yes, the drop in class is slightly a concern, but I think they're just getting realistic with this filly and placing her at a competitive level.
Yeah, and that's why I like her. I just think they found the spot for this horse today.
We have the Too Sweet Arl, a first-time starter for trainer Dale Romans, and it's hard to really find a good substance of information in terms of breeding that you're kind of standing on shaky ground with some of these first-time starters.
Yeah, I mean, she's a daughter of U.S. Ranger, which I don't know much about, and debuting for Dale Romans. But what's a series of useful morning workouts at Palmettos? She's going to get LASIK. She's going to get Corey Lannery in the saddle today. So that's where I went. It's a wide-open affair, so why not throw maybe a first-time starter on there? Actually, third choice on the morning line.
And that is Dale Roman's go-to rider, Corey Lannery, down here. But the mare was unraced. The second mare was unraced. The only other foal was 1 for 11. Didn't make a lot of money. So that's where I kind of went a different direction in terms of the first-time starters. The 3, Pomera, for what it's worth, Ralph Nix. He's not very strong with maiden claimer first-time starters. Only about 12% with about 17 horses. But the second mare was very nice. She was a dirt sprinter, actually. I think got an 86 Buyer speed figure, and the mare was unraced. So it is a tricky race to really have some solid ground on, but at least you have the 6 Killer Bird who has some substance to her.
Yeah, and that's why I went there, because I couldn't really figure with the first-time starters. Was guessing in that part, and the 6 sort of had some foundation that we can build off.
Okay, race 3 on the card, an open $16,000 event, the 1-turn mile on the main track. And you and I both took the approach where we're trying to beat the favorite in here. Yes, we have the defect of the 8 Hail Cephas, who should have gotten a little bit of money here, but the 5 Unspoken Quality and the 3 Flowers for Lisa, these could probably be your 2 post-time favorites.
Yeah, I would think so. Unspoken Quality. I did not even have it on the ticket with the scratch of the 8. I moved the 5 up. I was trying to beat it totally, and I did go with the number 4, Arco di Triunfo. An impressive 7-length maiden winner on the dirt, 2 races back. Goes back to the main track today. Showed some early interest and faded. That was against 25 claimers, going 7.5 on the turf. Juan A. Rodriguez doing a really good job here this meet. Luis Saez handling that surface switch. So I went with the old turf to dirt move.
And this horse was heavily favored there when he actually drew away from the field, and I respect him in the top 4 as well. Just the turf to dirt angle for the barn isn't the strongest angle, kind of lower statistics. So I went to the 1, Galatasaray, to the inside. When this horse debuted, I thought it was impressive. He did go gate to wire, but he finally gets back to a main track. Now, when he was, perhaps the claim had something to do with it, but again, 2 starts back, he was on a sloppy sealed track. He chased against tougher. He didn't get off to a great start. I thought he had a tremendous amount of excuse. Last time out, I just don't think he's any bit of a turf horse. And now he finally gets to his preferred surface and back to a preferred distance. He should be able to show speed from that rail.
And I like his odds at 12-1. I think he's got a big shot in there to be on the board, and you got him right on top of your ticket. So I did not use that on my early pick 5, but I got a chance to change it because post time is still a little while away.
Okay, race 4 on the card is 16,000 non-winners, a 2 lifetime event, and 7.5 furlongs onto the main track. The 3, Holy Scat, first off, the claim for trainer Jane Sibeli looks very tough in here, and we actually have a statistic for the barn over the past 5 years. First off the claim on the turf, Jane Sibeli consistently knocks at 24%, 43% in the money, and still a positive ROI, $2.55. I thought that was a very strong stat.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I got this one right on top of my ticket. Holy Scat, as you mentioned, in the Jane Sibeli barn via that claim. Turning back to 7.5 after making that middle move. Went up, battled for the lead, and there settled for 4th against Simmel. That was going a mile in the 16th. I just think this is a good spot for number 3, Holy Scat, on top of my ticket.
And this horse has been compromised by some unfortunate trips in the past, too. I remember watching this horse so many times at Pimlico and Laurel and thinking, one of these days she'll actually find the winner's circle, and she did. And that was kind of my only one concern with her, is she got away with a pretty lucky lead a couple starts back on a good going that day that speed was relatively holding strong. So I respect her, though. The claim is strong. The 2 Angora I stick with once again here today. And perhaps she doesn't want to be on the lead. And I'm thinking that from that inside post position, she could very well just sit and stalk towards the inside. She was kind of aggressively sent, and I thought it was a brilliant move by Corey Lanery, because a lot of these times that's where you want to be. You want to be on the lead, stretching out to the 2 turns here. I liked her so much last time out because I figured she wasn't a 5-furlong sprinter, and she proved me right. She actually does like 2 turns on the turf. So I'll stick with her once again here today. You throw in the 8 Beeline for trainer Dale Romans, who Corey Lanery actually is attracted to versus the 2 Angora.
Well, I mentioned that it's his go-to rider, Dale Romans. I think he went there. He's expected to show more, I thought. Returned from about a 5-month layoff to finish the chase, the pace 5th at this level of distance. We mentioned the connections. And getting back to Angora, that was the day when this horse ran against what it was hard to win on the front end. So I think that was a pretty good performance. And having this horse on top of your ticket is probably a good move. I had to use it, too.
Okay, race 5 on the card to cap off the early pick 5, a maiden $35,000 event. A mile onto the turf course, and the 5 Over Dramatic seems to be the horse to beat on the drop in class alone from maiden 75 to the maiden $35,000 tag for trainer Chad Brown.
And that's what you call me all the time, too. So number 5, Over Dramatic, is taking an immediate drop to the $35,000 level. As you mentioned, broke slowly from the rail, rallied, got beat 3 lengths. 75,000. It's Chad Brown, Javier Castellano, going to be a big favorite in there. But, why the drop? You got to always get that question. I mean, it's a horse that you want to put on your ticket, but I can understand why you went to the inside with Canitra.
Well, I think the drop was primarily because they debuted her for the maiden 75 level, and she just ran an average performance. Right. I couldn't really see her moving up out of that. And your option could be, well, if the connection thought she did run well, step her up to maiden special weight perhaps. But this is a competitive level. This is why Chad Brown wins races, and his maiden claimers in their second start as well do have a tendency to improve. On the other side of the spectrum, he has struggled with his maiden claimer first-time starters here so far at the meet. So this horse is going to move forward by virtue of the fact that she's meeting easier company. But kind of the story of the horse, the 1 Cantira, if you go back and watch a replay, and we don't have it, but it's a very strong race, because she was tactically placed early under Tyler Gaffleone, and it looked like everything was going very well. She was passed on the outside. She didn't really see this horse closing from off the pace, Tiz Jet, who had a lot of momentum, but she kind of met her stride and just kept firing back. And I thought visually as a strong race, she was very game, and I do like the cutback in distance of the mile. I think that's going to really sharpen her up.
Yeah, I wrote in my analysis today that the slight turn back I think is going to be key for this horse. Had to use it on my ticket.
And any other thought? We have the 4 Duchess Bird in here that you throw into the mix for trainer Nick Zito, who does get the blinkers on, and perhaps they might have an option to just send her today. Yeah,
that's what I think is going to happen. Wearing the blinkers today, got chased the pace last time out, finished 3rd. 25,000 maidens going 7.5. Luis Saez in the saddle today.
That's races 1 through 5 and the early pick 5. We will take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the 20-cent Rainbow pick 6 right after this commercial break. Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Now taking a look at the pick 6. I did come up with a ticket, and I promise you my ticket was cheaper before the scratch of my single, so I had to go back to the drawing board, and going to be using, I believe, 3 horses in that leg of the sequence. So $57.60 is what we're left with here, Ron. Just using 2 horses in the first leg, the 3 and the 9, with the 3-4-6, with the 2-4, with the 1-4-8, using 4 horses in race 10, and capping it off with just 2 in race 11. Some of these races, you either have to go with 2 horses or 5 horses. You have to have a little bit of a strong opinion, and really anything could happen, including in this the first race to kick it off, the maiden 12,500. Once again, a $2.6 million carryover in the pick six furlongs on the main track. We'll go back and we'll talk about the 3-star Starship Brooklyn here for a second quickly for trainer Mike Petro, because this really should be decently bet off of that last performance too. And we see some statistics that I thought were telling here. Over the past 5 years, we'll throw up this statistic, over the past 5 years, second off the layoff on the dirt with low-level claimers. This is surprising to me. 2 for 32, 6% and a negative ROI. We know how well the barn does, especially with claimers on the dirt, but that was a very telling stat.
Yeah, now that I see it, this is my best bet of the afternoon, the 3 Starship
no.
Brooklyn. So we're going to have to go back and rethink this thing. Sitting on a winning performance, I thought after returning from the 10-month layoff, set the pace, got caught at the wire when beating a length at this level and distance. You mentioned the connections, Elvis Trujillo in the saddle today, and I just thought this horse had a tactical advantage in here, and maybe that 3%, maybe this will make it 4%.
6%, I think. No, we're working with a little bit more, 6%. And it could easily improve off of that last race, and I use her protectively as well. I can't leave her off the pick 6. The 9 Mo Weiss, I think, is the only other alternative option that you could perhaps try to beat the 3 Starship Brooklyn with, and we'll go back and take a look at the break, actually immediately exiting the gate.
Yeah, she really gets, you'll see it here once it starts, and she's the 6 in there, just gets bopped around and almost goes to her knees there. And I just thought she ran well, and it was a solid second behind a slow pace at this level and distance back on February 4th. Now hopes to get away after, causing her to stumble and finish last in that race, because I just think they called it off after that.
Yeah, she was bumped and compromised immediately at the start. She was kind of taken off stride, and this is a horse who wants to be forwardly placed. She wants to be close to the lead, and that compromised her immediately. Even her race 2 starts back, I thought was a winning race behind Pathos, who we saw go gate to wire and was the beaten favorite last weekend. But again, you're not going to catch a George Navarro horse that has speed like that draws off from the rest of the field by 7 lengths. So perhaps a viable option that you want to use as we kick off the pick 6.
Yeah, and we both threw in this 6 Spring May, who finished second in front of Starship Brooklyn last time out. So if you're going deeper in that leg, you might want to put that horse on your ticket. But I think you have the 2 right ones. At least I'm hoping you do.
I hope so as well. Race 7 kicks off the 50-cent late pick 5, and we started off at a mile for this open $25,000 event. And you have a late pick 5 ticket, so let's see it.
I'm going to show it to you right now, and you'll see as it goes down. When it pops up there, it's a $36 ticket. Going 4 deep in here. My long shot today, Texas Zip, is 15-1 on the morning line. Used that one in race 7, and 2 deep, 2 deep, 2 deep. And in the end, I went with 3, 4, and 8 for a $36 ticket. I was afraid of this first leg. I want to get out of here. I'm hoping to get the long shot to win and maybe get the rest of the horses, as we'll talk about as we go on, to win. Get me a pick 5 victory today.
And looking at the race too, when we got early scratches, the 1 Foxhall Drive scratched, and then I looked at the 9 Sportscaster and thought to myself, well, this horse has got to be Lone Speed, then this is going to be my single of the day. And not the case. Unfortunately, that horse scratched too. So all potential speed did scratch, and I think it falls into the hands of your top selection, the 6 Stock, which has to move him up on your picks, and including mine.
Yeah, and I mean, this was a face to 25 claimers after stalking the pace, finishing second. Stalk last time out. A solid group of $50,000 optional claimers last time out at this very distance. Ramon Preciado, Jose Lascano. He's got to realize that he might be the speed of the speed in here. I'm sure he will. And go up there and see if he can steal this one on the front end.
I think a dangerous one to perhaps get aggressive with was Jose Lascano today. The 4 Prince Vincenzo, I liked him last time out coming out of the Sunshine Millions turf race because I thought he had a little bit of an excuse and altogether ran a very, very solid race behind the likes of Manchurian High. Now, ultimately, immediately after that race last time out, they drop him in class. I didn't see any real excuse. I feel like this is a horse who, he's a Florida bred. They claimed him to run on Sunshine Millions Day. It's not panning out and now dropping in for the tag. So this is why I initially tried to go against him with the 9 Sportscaster, but he's obviously one you have to use protectively, and I don't think he'll be too far off the pace. However, you look at a horse that we both use, a 3 Dream Man, and he just looks like a deep closer, very pace dependent, and I just don't know if he's going to fit the flow of the race now with some of the scratches.
With some of the scratches, and you're right. But getting back to Prince Vincenzo just a little bit, if you look at its 3 lifetime turf victories, they were all on firm turf courses. The recent ones have all been on softer turf courses with some cutting them. So I expect this horse maybe just didn't like the going in some of those races. Now gets a chance to certainly run on the turf course that's firmer. I know we weren't here for the last couple of days, but it certainly didn't rain where we were, so where our houses were. So we'll see what happens there. So Prince Vincenzo, I think, is a good pick in that race.
He's getting much firmer conditions than what he experienced in the past 2 starts, that's for sure. We'll move on to the 8th race, a maiden $16,000 event, a mile and a 16th. On to the turf course, and you land on the 4 Shutter Speed. Both of us do, actually.
Yeah, dropping to the $16,000 level locally after tracking a tepid early fraction, finishing second as we're getting $25,000 claim is going a mile. It was on the Fairgrounds turf. It's Joe Sharp, Corey Lannery. It's a gelded son of strong contender. Of course, there's a little guesswork here. Just looked like the logical choice in here is coming in from the Fairgrounds. Hard to really gauge class from here to there, you know, especially at this level.
Yes, and we have seen some of the fairground shippers. It was kind of sink or swim. We saw one last weekend that didn't pan out too well, but a couple weeks prior to that, we actually saw a few, if not specifically one, actually really like the firmer going here. So it is kind of sink or swim, but the reason why I do like him in here is it's the 3rd start off the layoff. When he debuted, or when he came back to the races there back in January at the fairgrounds, that was a key race. We saw several horses come back to win, including Key to the Bridge. He was compromised, I thought, at the start, and he really couldn't get into the game early, but he made a nice closing bid in his last start. The winner was actually 4-5 coming out of that race prior, so that horse was much the best, and I just think this is going to be a very competitive lateral move here. The horse that's the unknown factor is the 2 West 8th Street, because Mike Dilger, he does a very, very excellent job with his horses coming down here, or really anywhere he takes them. And the numbers actually speak for themselves. We didn't put up a stat because it's such a small sample size, but with similar layoffs on the turf, he's 4 for 9, 44%, and a $4 ROI. So they run well. Majority of them hit the board. He's done this with kind of maiden special weight to maiden claimer droppers before, and they finished 1st and 2nd. So he's definitely capable of this type of move. Winning.
Yeah, the only problem I had with the horse, and did not use it on my ticket because there was only a couple of published works, and they weren't very, exciting works. So, but that doesn't mean to say that the horse is not training well and just has those couple of published works in there. The horse that I used, and you used on your ticket in 2nd, used in 3rd, Dothraki Warrior, has been knocking the door in both local races at this level and distance. Just needs a little luck in here to, put this condition in the bank.
Hey, I agree. I'll be using him as well. The sneaky horse, though, is a 3, and I wish I actually used him on the pick 6, but money is limited here, but that was kind of a sneaky one for Marcus Vitale.
Yeah, he moved to the Marcus Vitale Barn V. The claim stretches out to a mile and a 16th after finishing an even 5th against similar going 7.5 furlongs. But there was a stat that I had that we didn't put up. Marcus Vitale's 1 for 6 with a 260 ROI over the last 5 years, with the maiden claimants making the first start after the claim on the turf. Not something he does often, but there is a positive ROI of $2.60.
Okay, we'll move on to the 9th race on the card, an open $25,000 event, 7.5 furlongs on the turf course, and we have a replay of the 4 Daddy's Pride in here, and we'll go back and take a look at this particular replay just from the quarter pole home. And visually, I thought this was a pretty strong race. This horse was actually decently bet, all considering that he didn't pick up his feet in the race prior to that. And he had excuses in his start on the 2nd of January, too, but was 8th out of several horses in that race. this was a especially sharp performance because she was really pressured and hounded the entire way around there. She fought back gamely down on the inside to beat Dabria, who I believe was a pretty short price. The only negative with that race, though, was we saw Dabria, George Weaver horse, come back and I believe take the blinkers off or put the blinkers on, and really not a good performance coming back.
Yeah, but in that race, too, if you look at the head-on Dabria, they've actually bumped a couple of times in the stretch in there, and I thought it was game that the horse still fought on to win it, so it was a good race. I agree with you 100% there.
The one smoking red hot, these are always the horses that I find intriguing. First off the claim, they immediately try something different, and this filly's bred to like the grass. She is by Stormy Atlantic. You look on the bottom side, the mare was actually 0 for 4 on the turf, but she actually earned an 81 by her speed figure, and that was against Allowance Company. She's a half-sister to a horse who was a 2-time winner on the turf, and I love these claims. They claim with a purpose.
Yeah, I mean, and I like the breeding on this horse, so put it on my ticket. The one I didn't know, you did not use, and I didn't know what to do, it was St. Mistress, the number 7. Going to give the turf a try after totally dominating a field of 12-5 maidens going a one-turn mile on the dirt. The obvious concerns, of course, the jump in class and the so-so turf breeding, but I just thought this horse, off that last performance, might come up and just beat me, so I put it on my ticket.
It's kind of a sneaky horse, but I just didn't find a lot of solid ground to stand on in terms of turf pedigree, but that was a very good claim. I didn't think this filly was going to run as well as she did last time out, and she's clearly one that perhaps really likes at a distance. She could use her speed to advantage and was visually impressive. The 8 Rosebuds Tiger was one that I opt for instead, and I think this one, the big question is she a 5-furlong sprinter or is she a 2-turn turf horse? The main reason why I go back to her is because she's getting a considerable drop in class from the most recent start when she went 2 turns on the turf.
Yeah, and it's another one of the races here that turf races that are a little tough to figure. You got horses trying to turf for the first time, others that have run well on it. So as usual, a tough thing to figure out.
Race 10 on the card, a starter optional claiming event. We have 5 furlongs onto the turf course, and we have the likes of the 7, Ramblin' and Gamblin' for trainer Jason Service, and I believe we'll go back and take a look at this filly's replay there when she really did run nicely. She went on to the front end. This was back on the 26th of December, the number 4 horse, and she was about 3 wide there going into the final turn, and she felt a little bit of a closing kick from that 10 horse to the inside, but she really drew clear, and she was urged by Tyler Gaffleone. I don't even know if he necessarily had a whipper as many times as he did, because she did it on pure talent alone there.
Yeah, and I mean, I got to run a ticket for all the reasons you mentioned, but I really like a horse in here today. And it's a little bit of a guess, again, because it hasn't run in a while, and that's the 4 Tight Weave. Second on the turf in the $62,000 Colleen at Monmouth last August is making her first start. If you go back and you can look at the head-on of this last race, we couldn't get it in time today. Stumbled badly, went right to her nose on the main track. It was in Monmouth Sorority, September 6th. I thought enough of this horse that they wanted to try her in the Sorority. It's Todd Beattie. He does an excellent job. He's got positive stats with horses returning from a longer than 180-day layoff. So I just thought I would go with the number 4 Tight Weave on top of my ticket. And I didn't fool anybody because it's the morning line favorite.
And Todd Beattie, I'm very familiar with, obviously, in the Mid-Atlantic, and he does a fantastic job. The numbers speak for themselves. He's 24% on the year. But my only concern with this filly is that she did stumble out of the gate. It was a subpar performance. She was a filly that was precocious, and she seemed to have a lot of talent. Now we haven't seen her since early September, and they immediately bring her back for the $35,000 claiming tag. I didn't think that that was a real vote of confidence move, but her turf sprint alone, and I think that's the race that you really have to pay attention to, was very strong. It was against Ruby Notion, who I believe prior to that start had run at Royal Ascot, and she actually went on to run in the Breeders' Cup for Wesley Ward. So she was beaten by a very talented horse, and all of those strong factors make me question why she's in for the $35,000.
Yeah, I get it. That's a great point. I know you did put the 2 Go, Row, Row, Go on top, who I have on the ticket also.
Yes, cutting back to the sprint distance, who I thought if she can replicate her performance that she showed on the 6th of January, could make her very strong. And she didn't, if you watch the replay too, she didn't break too well. She kind of broke a little bit awkwardly. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's tracking the leaders today, because outside of that race, she showed enough speed going 2 turns on the turf that I would think she could get a nice stalking trip and not so much have to be a deep closer at 5 furlongs.
Yeah, and she's, she's getting some nice class relief here. You mentioned she was in the Mrs. Presidentris last out and the 1 mile grade 3 Swedish chant, where she showed that early interest.
Yes, the 8 Don's Girl is one other one I'll use, because I feel like this was another one that I've been kind of paying attention to for the past couple of starts. And last out, I thought she went off at kind of sneaky low odds, and she really performed. I visually, I thought it was impressive. And if any of these other horses aren't ready to fire off freshenings or off layoffs, or maybe have a decline in form, I think that this condition suits her extremely well off of that big victory last out.
That was a pretty nice one, race by almost 6 lengths that day.
We'll cap things off with the 11th and final race on the card, a maiden 12,500 event, and the 1-turn mile onto the main track. And this is one of the races today where you either have to pick 2 or you pick several. And how many horses did you use in the final leg?
I used 3 in the final leg. Okay. I wanted to use, how many were in here? 11, but I wanted to use, but I couldn't. But I did settle on the 3 Forever Later. Was slammed sideways at the start prior to finishing 4th at this distance on February 11th. Now stretching out after a steady bid produced a 4th place finish, going 3/4 of a mile last time out. Leading jockey Javier Castellano handled a stretch out in distance. Troubled trip. You're getting Javier Castellano. Just thought this was the logical place to go. I put this one on top, but not with any ringing endorsement.
Yes, but I liked her going into that 1-turn mile too, just thinking that she would like a little bit of added distance, and she was completely compromised coming out of the gate. This was one of the races that, you see maybe bobbled at the start or bumped at the start. She was really severely compromised, and last out was an okay performance, but I just think she clearly wants more distance, so I agree with you. I like her stretching back out to a route of ground. The 10 Starship Hostility, yes, I usually don't go with these types of horses, but technically she's only 0 for 2 on the main track, and her race a few starts back against similar company I thought was decent enough to make her competitive at a decent price. Today the blinkers go on, which I think can only help her. When she faced other company recently on the dirt, it was Manhattan Moxie, who was heavily favored, just went gate to wire that race. I think the dynamics are a little bit different here today.
Yeah, I think this, the only concern once again is always those outside posts going 1-turn mile. Here I use Misty Phyllis in second or for more. She returned from a 2-month layoff. Did not run bad in that race. She was 30-1 that day. Ralph Zadie, apprentice John Cruz in the saddle again. Maybe this horse can grab a share. It's a wide open affair.
One of the many horses that I could use, but just using the 3 and the 10. So hopefully we can get maybe the 3 home, so we both hit the pick 5. And pick 6,
I like
right?
your thinking. Yes.
Okay, well that's 11 races on tap. Once again, we have that $2.6 million carryover today in the pick 6. It does start in race 6. It's a fun sequence, so is the early pick 5, and I think that's going to do it for us today. I don't see Larry Colmus waiting in the wings just yet, though, so unless you finish early.
Yeah, we actually finished a minute early. With that said, watch how the races run today, because it's a very breezy afternoon. The wind is coming out of the east. See if it affects either speed or stalkers or closers. Maybe you can make a guess and then use that when you put your Rainbow Six ticket together.
Yes, always important to pay attention to the first half of the card if you're looking to take down that $2.6 million carryover. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back for races 1 through 11, and Larry Colmus will be up shortly with all those scratches and changes. Best of luck.
Our day begins early, preparing for the task ahead, focused on a single goal. Then it's showtime, ready to face another challenge.